Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and we'll see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. And as always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter /X. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. As always, this thing is growing by the daily, and I couldn't do it without all of you. Make sure you continue to follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, anything else that they're coming out with. You best believe that I'm going to have my name locked in there so that if you're going there to me, you can check me out on socials, and I'll definitely be giving some feedback on everything that's going on in the sports world, whether it's here in the Tampa Bay area or not. Follow, like, subscribe, especially here on YouTube as well, as we adjust, getting a little adjusting here. Yes, man, today was just one of those crazy days where you're just looking at getting ready for the show, getting ready for the weekend. Lightning in action tonight at Amalie Arena against the Anaheim Ducks. So you know I will be in attendance for that one. We got Man U playing at 3 o'clock, so I'm rocking the third kit from last year, my guy Casemiro. But yeah, plenty to get into on the program today. First, want to say hello to everybody chiming in for Thaw, Stubby, Ryan, Bucketeers podcast, and my guy Bart Hill. As always, we had kind of, and got to get you in, Dolan, because you've been a big supporter as well. Again, I said follow me on social media, like and subscribe on YouTube, trying to get those subscribers over 1,000. We're getting closer to 800, so thank you for that. Again, share this, let everybody know, friends, family, local politicians, mailmen, dentists, personal doctors. Let everybody know the Recher podcast is here with you every day at noon as well. Donald Browder in the house. What up, Jay? Miss hearing you, brother. No missing me anymore, Donald. I am here every single day at noon. I want to say every day, every weekday, because, you know, brother needs some time off as well. But yeah, plenty to get into on the program. We kind of had a schedule set up, and then we saw the news come down a little while ago. Longtime broadcaster, Mr. Baseball himself, Bob Uecker, passed away this morning. Well, was it this morning at the age of 90? Yes, it was this morning. One of the most difficult days in Brewers history. In a statement released by the club, the great Bob Uecker passed away at age 90. Wow. What a life. What a career. And the way that things go, whether it was back in the radio business or here on the Recher podcast, is sometimes you got to call an audible. Sometimes you got to go to the bullpen. And that's exactly what we did. So at 12:10 today, we're going to be joined by the voice of the Tampa Bay Rays. Andy Freed is going to join us. He got an opportunity alongside Neil Solondz and Doug Wecker to actually meet Bob Uecker. I believe it was last year or the year before, up there in Milwaukee. Can't wait to talk to him about that and all things Rays. I put 12:15, Matera. It's actually 12:30. Matty's at 12:30 today from Pewter Report, talking all things Bucks. Corey Long at 1 o'clock. NHL.com writes for a bunch of different entities. He's got some great opinions. He's actually got a different insight on the whole Liam Coen, Todd Bowles situation, and we'll also preview Lightning in Anaheim with him. And then at 1:30, one of our own needs help. The one and only Sonya Bryson-Kirksey, and you know her. If you've been to a Lightning game or if you've been in the Tampa area at all, she's one of the voices of our town. And she's going through it right now. And her mom is unfortunately sick, and they have a GoFundMe out. And as soon as I saw that GoFundMe last night, I knew that we had to have Miss Sonya on the program today. She's one of a kind, and she's one of the sweetest human beings there ever was. So if we can help Miss Sonya Bryson-Kirksey today, just by supporting her with the GoFundMe and getting the word out, that's exactly what we're going to do. So she's going to join us at 1:30, and she's going to tell us how we can help her, because that's what we do here in the Tampa Bay area. You see this around me, right? You see all of the teams, and I know Man U's there, but that's, my personal But you look at the Rays, you look at the Lightning, you look at the Rowdies, you look at the Sun, you look at the Bucks. Like, Team Tampa Bay is legit. We support each other, and we're there for each other when we are in times of need. And this is exactly what we're going to do for Miss Sonya. Because, again, you want to talk about salt of the earth people, one of the best people that you're ever going to meet. She's one of them. And think about the impact that she's had on our community by singing the national anthem. And us being and we're lucky. We're lucky the Lightning introduced us to her, and we were able to get an insight into everything that she's had to deal with her MS. And remember how sick she got during during COVID. Man, so when I saw that, my heart went out to her. It really did. So if we can help out Miss Sonya Bryson-Kirksey in any way, that is exactly what we're going to do. A little bit later on the show, we're also going to talk about St. Pete's own Danielle Collins and how she went full WWE at the Australian Open. Also a big upset. Learner Tien, learn the name, 19 years old. U.S. beat Daniil Medvedev, one of the best tennis players in the world, and that's a big win for Learner Tien. So learn that name. It was a great call on the broadcast as well. So yeah, USA holding it down over there in Australia, but you got to check out. If you didn't see what Danielle Collins did last night or earlier this morning, man, she went full heel, full WWE, and I am all about it. Last night went to the USF men's basketball game. Unfortunately, they came up short against UAB, but if there's one thing that we've learned about this team, they are resilient. They don't go down without a fight. And Jaden Reed, that young man, 26 points, my fellow Long Island brother, did everything he could to keep USF in that game. UAB was balling. They were rebounding. They were hitting their threes. Early on, they were hitting their free throws. Like, they just did everything right. That's a well-coached team, and we remember them pretty passionately because, yeah, of course, last year, last year, that was the team that ended the USF season. So to watch them play, you're like, damn, that's a legit team. They're probably going to be a handful come tournament time. But to watch USF not wilt under pressure, they're down 20 at the half. They end up losing by 9. They just kept fighting, and Jaden Reed was a big reason why. And listening to Coach Ben Fletcher after the game yesterday, he knows the heart isn't a problem with this team, which is great because some teams you look at it, you look at the hunger, you look at the work ethic, and you wonder where it's coming from. For them, it's about the execution. For them, it's about, all right, how can we make sure that whatever we're being coached on, we can pull that and do that in the game? And once they're able to do that, then I think this team is going to end up taking that next step. But shout out to Jaden Reed, 26 points last night, the ability to keep them in that game, because there are a lot of other teams out there that would have just folded. They would have folded, and that would have been it, and they would have lost that game by 30, no matter what. LIV Golf joining up with Fox Sports. That's some other breaking news that we've just heard earlier this morning. Fox Sports going to broadcast LIV Golf events starting this season. So our good friend Bob Harrick is going to join us on the program tomorrow to talk about that. We're wondering if a TV deal was going to happen, and that's exactly what we're seeing now. Third season for LIV Golf. It's teeing off February 6th through 8th at the Riyadh Golf Club in Saudi Arabia, followed by tournaments in Australia, Hong Kong, and Singapore. The first LIV Golf tournament in the U.S. played at the Trump National Doral Golf Club in Miami, April 4th to 6th this week before the Masters. And I wonder if this has anything with the world rankings. Like, will guys get points now that they're going to be seen here in the U.S. on these Fox Sports broadcasts? I know some people will say, no, it shouldn't matter. But if there's not going to be any kind of inclusion together and these guys aren't going to be able to work together to get points and to have it count towards Ryder Cups, and we know that it's obviously a different ball of wax when it comes to the majors, but man, it's just, I hope they come to some kind of conclusion. And I don't know if this brings them closer together, if this makes it that they're farther apart, but there's nobody better to ask than our guy, Bob Harrick, long time for ESPN, but now he's with Sports Illustrated doing a great job as always. Shout out to our guy, Nick in Sarasota. What do you think of the NHL and Lightning leaning in to the hockey night marketing? Hey, man, that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we're spreading the word. We're trying to grow the game. We're doing that for everything here in the Tampa Bay area because we are still, you look at the teams behind us, like they're still relatively young when you're talking about all the teams around them in their each professional league. Richie P, I'm rooting for these kids over at USF. Reed is getting an opportunity to play that I'm not sure he would have gotten elsewhere. He's getting better by the game. Yeah, and a kid that was a point guard playing off the ball, scoring. I love to see that. All right, let's bring him in. The voice of the Tampa Bay Rays, the one and only Andy Freed. Andy, thank you so much, man. I know I hit you up late in the game, but always great to see you. Always great to talk to you. How are things?
Things are good. We're counting down to baseball season, and that's to me once the calendar goes to January, I start to get that itch, and that itch only gets scratched come spring training.
Yeah, every single show that I have, I always hold a official Major League Baseball. I don't know. It's just one of those things that feels natural, and I'm with you, man. Once you start seeing the cold days, and then the next day's a warm day, you're like, oh man, it feels like baseball weather. We're getting closer to baseball weather. I can't wait. It's going to be such a unique season, Andy. And for as much as people talk about the players and how it's unique for them, I mean, it's unique for the broadcasters and everybody surrounding the team too.
I think the only way to go into this season for the Rays is with a good attitude. I mean, we're like that in our department anyway. I think we're always just kind of we always take stock in the fact that we have a really, really good job. Right. So it's nothing new for us. But I think this year there's going to be inconveniences and there's going to be things that are different from what we normally do, the sides of the booth, et cetera, et cetera. But no one wants to hear about what isn't good. They want to hear about the team. The team is the star. And we're going to do our very best, as we do every year, to lead the league in fun. And I think we've done that for quite a while now. At least that's the effort.
Yeah, without a doubt, you guys do such a great job and continuously ranked among the best when it comes to the radio broadcasts in Major League Baseball. And Andy, unfortunately, we lost one of the best broadcasters that we've ever heard. And the late, great Bob Uecker, we lost this morning at 90 years young. And the one thing I loved about Bob Uecker is that he had such a great balance of entertainment and information. He had experience from being a player, but he always made you feel like he wasn't afraid to be self-deprecating. he was just a guy like you could not have fun listening to him call a game. And I know you guys, I saw the picture that Doug Wechter put out. You guys had the opportunity to meet him. Was it last year or the year before? I mean, what a great experience.
I met him a couple of times. That same picture that Doug has, I have on my phone too, and we'll cherish it forever. I had a feeling, no one knew, because Bob Uecker had been through an awful lot over the last several years. He had heart problems. He had cancer problems. He lost a daughter to ALS. There was a lot of personal issues that he had to deal with. And yet every time you saw him at the ballpark, I think that is where he was at his happiest. And I met him a couple of times. I never saw him not engage with people. I think that was his real gift. You talk about how he wasn't afraid to be self-deprecating. His whole broadcast career is built on self-deprecation. I think his appearances on the Johnny Carson show, on the Tonight Show, are maybe the best of any guest ever on that show. And maybe I'm dating myself now, but that show was the show. There were no other. That was before Letterman or Leno or any of the other talk shows. That was the one talk show back when there was only 3 networks. And when I think he was on over 100 times on that show. Yep. And whenever we needed, I remember one time Dave and I were bummed out about something. I don't remember what it was, but I wanted to find something humorous. So I put on YouTube, and there's so many on there, one of his appearances on Johnny Carson, and Dave and I just could not stop laughing. And whenever we needed a little laugh before the game, that was our go-to. Johnny Carson and Bob Uecker together on that show, with Ed McMahon laughing in the background. And the fact that I got a chance to meet him a couple of times, and he couldn't have been nicer. A couple other things that he went through. He had a stalker at one point in time that hopefully none of us ever have that situation, but he did, and he had to deal with that in many uncomfortable ways. So my point is, even though he had a lot to deal with in his personal life, when he was at the ballpark, I think that was when he was his most him. That gave him energy and brought him to life. And in the couple of times that whether it was Dave and I or Neil and I and Doug and BA met him, he made us laugh. That's what he could do. He was an entertainer first and foremost.
Yeah, and it's so great because when you think about some of just the names in broadcasting. I mean, I grew up listening to baseball on the radio. Like that was my thing with my grandfather, and he was always preaching. And I think that's something that baseball has that maybe none of the other major sports really there's something about the history of the game. And I don't know if because it coincides with numbers or because it is, it's an old timey radio type of game, but there's just something that's so near and dear to my heart. And to think that, we don't have Vince Scully and we don't have Bob Uecker anymore. It's kind of like it's a changing, right? Like we know that life is changing. We know sports and we know how we, take information and take entertainment is changing. But it's almost like how many of the old school broadcasters are really left, right?
Well, I mean, to be honest, growing up, I could fiddle with the AM dial and get a lot of different broadcasts. I never could get Milwaukee from where I grew up in Baltimore, so I never knew him as a broadcaster growing up. I knew him as an entertainer, whether it was on the Tonight Show or Mr. Belvedere. I mean, the guy had a sitcom. He's the star of his own sitcom. But thankfully, because of these things, we've been able to listen to so many different broadcasts over the last several years. And, the thing to me is every town, you talk about old time broadcasters, guys last for a long time because they connect with their audience. And I think you can only do that on radio in baseball. I think that is because it's an everyday thing. We're not there once a week. We're there every single day, good day, bad day. We're there. And, when I think of Bob Uecker dying, he had been the voice of the Brewers since 1971. Just as a point of reference, that's exactly my age. I'm 53 years old. I'll be 54 in May. And every town, or it seemed like every team, had a guy like that. Bob Prince in Pittsburgh, Vince Scully in Los Angeles, Jack Buck in St. Louis, Harry Carey in Chicago. You could go on and on and on. And Bob Uecker was the voice of everyone in Milwaukee. They don't have one statue of Bob Uecker at the ballpark. They have three. That tells you. So I think everyone in Milwaukee feels a little bit older today. Just like in Baltimore when Chuck Thompson died in 2005, everybody felt a little bit of passage of time. And same thing for Scully in LA and all the other ones. So I feel for the fans of the Brewers. I feel for the residents of Milwaukee and Wisconsin. And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say in any sport in Milwaukee or Wisconsin or that segment of the country, there was no bigger star in any of the major sports, and they've got them all up there. There was no bigger star than Bob Uecker of the Milwaukee Brewers. So my heart breaks for the fans of the Brewers. I try to take solace in the fact that he lived 90 years, and it was a really good, well-lived life. And but I feel for the fans of the Brewers today very, very much.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, Andy, because obviously we lost Dave way too soon. But it just shows you, and I think that's the one thing that I try to tell people when they ask about baseball. And baseball is the heartbeat of America, but it's the heartbeat of each one of your baseball towns, right? Because like you said, every single day, whether you had a good day at work, a bad day at work, whether your team stunk last night and lost 10-0, or whether they blew somebody out and they won 10-0, like your radio broadcast team is going to be there for you the next day. And they're going to drop things just like you guys have, through your tenure, and you do it now with Neil dropping in the personal tidbits too. And it's when you lose something, when you lose a broadcaster, whether it was somebody like Dave or whether it's somebody like Bob Uecker, you're right. It's like you say, a passage of time, but you almost feel like you grew up with them, right? Because like I grew up with John Sterling, right? So now when people are talking about him retiring, and I'm just like, oh my God, the crazy ass nicknames that he come up with, and then seeing him in the press box at Tropicana Field asking for Dijon mustard, like it's crazy how. Isn't that like one of the beautiful things? And I know I'm preaching to the choir here because this is what you do, but that's a great thing about baseball. There's a familial type of connection that you have, not just with your friends and family, but people you probably will never meet before or ever.
I went to, and I say this with no ego involved. It could be anybody sitting in my seat, but I went to the Buccaneers game, my first ever Buccaneers game. I went to that last game against the Saints.
Wow.
On whatever day that was, that last Sunday of the regular season. And I was standing in the concourse, and just a guy came up to me, looked to be maybe mid-30s, something like that. And he goes, "Hey." And I didn't know who he was. He seemed to know who I was. And he came over and he goes, "Gosh, you're the voice of my childhood." And this guy's in his mid-30s. And it reminded me, again, not because it's me, but because of anyone lucky enough and fortunate enough to sit in that seat. It is a privilege. It is an absolute honor to be able to be with people throughout a large segment of their life. I had my favorite guys growing up, and you had your favorite guy growing up, and you feel like you know them. And to me, that's what people assume that the greatest gig in this in this industry is to be the national voice of something. To me, it's always been to be the local voice of a baseball team, because you can connect with people over a long period of time. You know, that guy in his 30s, and it didn't make sense to me. And then I was talking to my wife about it afterward, and she's like, well, he was probably like 10 when you came here. When did you fall in love with baseball? I was like, I was 8. Yeah. So I'm like right in that sweet spot. And so they feel like, you know, and for Bob Uecker and the fans of the Brewers, I mean, think of how long that is to be the voice of one team for 50 plus years. So when he was starting in the 70s, there were people that were born in the 50s, 40s, 30s listening to him. And now people listen to him that were born in this decade. So it's an incredibly long career and a lengthy career. And the guy was just so funny. The thing that I asked him when we were all with him this year in the booth, BA and Doug and Neil and me, I said, it amazes me, Bob, that you were able to be so dry and keep a deadpan straight face when you deliver a funny line on Carson. I said that I mean, obviously, you know, you're saying something that's going to break up the audience. Right. But how, I mean, you look at this, he doesn't crack even he was a comedic master of the deadpan. And he said that he told me, he goes, I don't know how I do it. He goes, I've been able to do that since I was a kid. He said, I could make people laugh when I was a kid and keep a straight face. And he was always able to do that. And that's where the humor was in all of it. Because, you know, what Johnny Carson would say, you know, they'd hold up a picture and he'd be down in like a crouch, and Carson would say, so that was you, you know, you're a catcher, and just deadpan, he'd come back and go, no, I was a chaser. You know, and he'd say it so seriously, and you'd hear everybody break up, but he had that line ready and waiting the whole time. And I don't know. I advise people and really encourage them to check out those old appearances on The Tonight Show, because if you want a lesson in entertaining people in comedy, my goodness, he'd break the whole set up, and it looked like he was hardly trying. It just made it look so easy.
Yeah, I was actually watching some this morning, just after that, because you go down the rabbit hole. I mean, I think people spend way too much time on their phones as it is, but there's certain times, like you said, when you could you need a laugh, you need some entertainment, you want to remember a great like that. That's how you do it. Before I let you go, I want to ask you, what's the most, what about the Rays this year is the most exciting? Give me a player specific or a position specific that excites you the most about the 2025 Rays.
Starting rotation. I think they may have the best rotation in the division, although I do pump the brakes a little bit when I think of, you know, just because Shane McClanahan's going to be back. Remember, this is 2 Tommy Johns for him. He's worked incredibly hard. I mean, I don't think people realize just how hard it is, and the patience and the will it takes to bounce back from these surgeries. They happen so often to people around the league, but it takes a lot. And this was number 2 for him. So while I'm hoping that he's back there throwing 99 like he used to, I think there has to be some trepidation in him instantly becoming that pitcher that he was at the start of the All-Star game a couple of years ago. But, you know, Boz improved. He looked great last year. Tosh Bradley had an incredible couple of months. Zach Littell, to me, is just kind of the meat and potatoes guy of this rotation. And I know I'm forgetting other guys, but it's Rasmussen. How could I forget? So they've got a lot of pitching. I think this team isn't going anywhere without being able to score more runs. And I think the emergence of Junior Caminero is going to be big. Josh Lowe, to me, is the most important player on this roster coming up this year. I think he has to get back to what he was in 23 for this team to make a move. If they score some more runs, I think the Rays are right in it. I don't see another dominating team.
Yeah, and I look at Josh Lowe. I know he just got married last week. I had Ryan Pepio on a couple weeks ago, and he said Josh is getting married. I was like, good, man. Sometimes like the change in life, right? Sometimes when you get married, sometimes you have a kid. Like sometimes it's just that next step in maturity. Maybe that'll help him out. What did you make of the whole Juan Soto thing?
You mean just the fact that he signed for what he signed for?
Yeah, it's just nuts, man. It's like, holy smokes.
It just shows, you know, there's always the talk of there's the players and the owners. But to me, the really interesting story, if we could ever find it out behind the scenes, and I don't think we ever will, but there really is the big market owners and this versus the small market owners. You know, there's, you know, Soto's only going to be able to sign with a couple of teams, and you have a guy like Stevie Cohen who comes there with seemingly unlimited cash and can sign a guy like that. But I still think, and I've thought this for many years, one player does not a team make. You know, I always use the Seattle Mariners as an example around the turn of the century. It was after they lost Griffey, Randy Johnson, and who I forgot.
A-Rod.
And A-Rod. That's when they won 116 games. They didn't have any of those guys on that team. So it's much more of a team game. One other thing, Jay, that I just want to say, because I know you got to wrap up. And I asked this of Bob Uecker because when we were there with him in Milwaukee, we had like this unlimited time with him for a while. And I asked him about Major League. And one of the players that I played basketball with in high school is in the background of the scenes when he is in the booth. And so I had a little bit of insight about what it was like in that booth from talking to him after the movie came out. And when I asked Bob Uecker about the lines, he ad-libbed all those lines. People may know that, people may not, I'm not sure. That was all ad-lib. And just to get a movie director or a series of producers to allow someone to use that valuable time when they're rolling film to ad-lib, it took incredible trust. And he, the just a bit outside and all that stuff, he made all of that up on. That tells you what a comedic, brilliant mind he had. And to do it on film, it's one thing we're watching it in a movie and it looks like, oh, he's just there natural. When you really think about the reality of that, coming up with those lines as it happens, pretty amazing. And he told me the story about how he came up with that and he had to talk to them about it and convince them to do it. But those lines in Major League that are just the ones that everybody imitates, he came up with them right then. Amazing.
Isn't it insane that just a bit outside came from a movie? Right? Like it's one of the most popular phrases in baseball history. And I don't know, like, I hope that it doesn't lose. I hope people remember, years and years and decades down the road that it didn't come from a broadcast. It didn't come from him broadcasting a Brewers game. It came from him during the Major League movie, which is
came from the mind of Bob Uecker, from one man. Pretty amazing stuff. What a legacy.
There's nobody else that I would rather talk to about Bob Uecker than you, my friend. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see you on a more consistent basis when baseball season hits us. It's such a unique year. I'm so excited. This is as excited as I've been about a baseball season. I'm jacked up. The one and only Andy Freed, the voice of our Tampa Bay Rays. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks.
I appreciate it, Jay. Thank you so much.
You got it, buddy. The one and only Andy Freed. Wow, man. What a great storyteller he is. And I can't wait for Rays baseball this year, man. It's just going to be such a great year. It's so unique. Nobody's ever seen that. I love that about sports. I love the years that are unlike anything else. And the Rays playing on the Tampa side. Yeah, man, there's a certain element of nobody knowing what the hell is going to happen. I love that. That's one of the great things about sports. Follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Hit that like button. Like, boom, boom, boom. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Let's get this viewership up. If you see any messages about the Jay Recher podcast, make sure you retweet them. Make sure you share them on your social media accounts because to me, that is going to help big time. Some news from Adam Schefter. The Tennessee Titans now have completed an in-person interview with Buccaneers assistant general manager John Spytek for their general manager position. We know with John Spytek and Mike Greenberg, two of the, I say this affectionately, henchmen for Jason Light. I mean, listen, this is what happens to good teams. This is what happens. You lose your coaches, you lose your front office members. I mean, when you have the sustained success that the Buccaneers have had over the last 5 years, you can't be surprised when your guys get poached. You just got to have to keep going, keep replenishing, and hopefully the Buccaneers can continue to win this division and hopefully go further in years ahead. Shout out to Tony Palazzolo. Love the new podcast. Miss you on 620, staying faithful from the Florida Keys. Thank you very much, Tony. Where in the Keys? I've been to Key West a bunch of times. Got a bunch of friends down there. And yeah, man, I miss being on DAE. I know a lot of people are like, they're afraid to say stuff like that, but I don't care. I miss being on there because I miss being around the people at iHeart. I miss talking to our fans and our listeners. But yeah, that's why I'm here on the Jay Recher podcast. It does not stop. You're always going to get full transparency from me. I don't care. I wear my heart and my emotions on my sleeve. Some people may think that's a bad thing. I think it's an endearing thing where you know where I'm coming from. I always wanted somebody to tell me that they didn't like me to my face rather than say they like me and they go around the corner and talk shit about me. That's just the kind of guy that I am. I am a full-blown Grandma's hitting me up. Got you? All right, Grandma, you got me. How you doing? Good, I hope. Love you. Grandma, I'm not going to answer text in the middle of this program unless it's my grandma because she is the best. She is a full-time supporter of the Jay Recher podcast and everything I do, and also a big-time Mets fan. We got a couple of Mets fans on the show. I just realized that. Shout out to Nick. Blob and I are going for the Steinbrenner beer snake record. Awesome. And there you go, Tony. There you are down in the Keys. A beautiful. It doesn't matter where you are in the Keys. It is all fantastic. All right, we're bringing in a Mets fan. Grandma's gonna love this one. Matt Matera, Matty4_Matera, the man, the one and only. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well, Jay. I got to say, when you just mentioned that your grandma texted you, I remember you saying before that your grandma's a big-time Mets fan. And it reminds me of your boy, Mike Piazza, who at his Hall of Fame speech, one of the things he said is, no one rocks the house like Mets fans. And I believe that true and true. So anyway, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, quickly on that, I don't know if I told you this, but I met Mike Piazza. You saw the picture, right? I met him at the Italian
Club at the Italian American Club.
And when they were up on the dais there, they actually spoke about the 2000 World Series, him and Tino Martinez, which was cool because they weren't like busting balls or anything. They were just talking about how great it was for the city. And Tino was like, no matter what happened, we would always look at the lineup and say, God, I hope Piazza's not coming up this inning. I hope he's not coming up. And then he comes up. And unfortunately for Mets fans around the world, he flies out. But man, when Mariano makes that pitch and that ball hits in the air, every Yankee, their heart sinks. And there's even a video of Tino going, oh no. Unfortunately for the Mets fans, Bertie Williams comes down with it. Yankees win in 5. But I remember I was in high school at the time. And I remember walking down the hallways in school, and one side was all Yankees, the other side was Mets. Teachers that wore suits and ties every day were wearing their jerseys. It was crazy, man. It was nuts. There was an intensity even in the local high schools that is really unmatched. And my grandma, even to this day, she calls them by their first name. Like she'll say, did you see, it wasn't DeGrom, it was Jacob, right? It wasn't Syndergaard, it was Noah, right? I love that. It wasn't Alonso, it was Pete. So we'll see. We'll see how they fortify their roster. I hear they're in on Vlad Guerrero Jr. That would be a big deal. And if I'm the Mets, I would be all over that. Think about that lineup. Lindor, Guerrero Jr., and Juan Soto. Woo! Matt Matera and the whole Matera crew would love that one. Let's talk some Buccaneer football. Season's over, unfortunately, after what happened on Sunday night. And now, like I just mentioned before, you're getting interviews with Spytech, Greenberg. We know Liam Coen just wrapped up. I saw you tweeted it out. I tweeted it out after midnight, and then I saw you post something too. It's like, man, they're burning the midnight oil trying to interview this guy. Who do you think has the best chance of leaving? Is it Spytech? Is it Greenberg? Or is it Liam Coen?
Yeah, first of all, just real quick on the late night interview. I have a theory. I have nothing to back this up, but I have a theory that because he interviewed with the Jaguars, which of course is the Khan family. AEW Dynamite was last night, the return of Samoa Joe. I have a feeling Tony Khan, who is involved a lot with the Jaguars too, was like, hold on, let's wait for Dynamite to end, and then I'll come back and we'll do the interviews. That's my theory there.
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Because why else? And, Tony's kind of a quirky guy, if you will, a little bit. He's a little eccentric, a little out there, so it wouldn't shock me. He's like, yeah, let's just do the interview at 12:30 a.m. Like, no problem. But as far as who would be most likely to leave, I do think it's John Spytech, just based on what he's built. Obviously, Jason Light has built a lot of it in Tampa, but he's been one of his right-hand men because he's on the player personnel type of things. He also won a Super Bowl with the Broncos before he even came to Tampa and then helped build this roster to what it is today. He gets a lot of credit, too, for obviously bringing in Shaq Barrett, signing him when no one else really knew who Shaq Barrett was, helped with the JPP trade, was influential with Baker Mayfield coming to Tampa as well. And I think a lot of teams, when you look at trying to bring in a general manager, most teams go on the side of finding the player personnel type of guy versus the finances type of guy. Because if you can identify talent, you can figure out the contracts later. But it's finding the right people first, which to me is the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I wonder because I've heard that for years, but then you see certain situations where there's so much credit to put for these capologists, right? And you see what Julian Breezeball has been able to do for the Lightning, and we know that that's a huge reason why the Buccaneers have been able to stay successful over the last couple of years is that dead cap money that cripples these other teams. But they found a way, right? They found a way to kind of kick the can down the road with guys like Tom Brady, and you see that with Chris Godwin. I want to ask you about him in a second, but yeah, I think it's a good balance, right? I think the cap, the cap crunch, and I've been watching football my entire life, almost 40 years. I didn't hear anything about dead cap until recently, right? So they're finding these loopholes. They're finding these ways to stay competitive, which I think is extremely impressive. I'll ask you about Coen and the rest in a bit, but I just brought him up, so I want to ask you, what do you think the chances are that Chris Godwin returns to the Bucs next season? Because I look at the dead cap hit, and whether he's here or not, you're paying the guy over 18 million. I don't, Mike is making 20 and a half. I don't know if Chris coming off a second season ending injury is going to get 25, 26 million from somebody else. I just think it makes a lot of sense. Like, get a similar deal to Chris. The Bucs only have to shell out 2 or 3 more million per than they would have if, they weren't bringing him back. I just think it makes too much sense to have Chris, who just had a kid. Like, I just think it makes too much sense that Chris Godwin returns next season. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree?
I agree. I think there's a really good chance Chris Godwin comes back. I'm not going to say 100%, but in a weird way, we're kind of in a deja vu situation with Chris Godwin, because the last time he was a free agent, he's coming off of that torn ACL, and he was arguably the best wide receiver available. It was like him and Mike Williams and one other receiver a couple of seasons ago when he was a free agent, and Mike Williams got that deal first, which then made Chris Godwin the guy. This year, he's coming off a dislocated ankle, which, I'm not a medical expert, but a lot of people are saying it's a little bit easier to come back from that than the torn ACL. And really, the receivers available, only T. Higgins is like the top guy besides Chris Godwin. But the big thing for me is, and you know this as well, Jay, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans too, but in this case, Chris Godwin, he's cut from a different cloth. He's not the diva wide receiver. He's not just going to be like, I'm going to go to the highest bidder and that's it. Case closed. Chris Godwin has built a beautiful life here with him and his wife and now their young child. And congrats to him. He loves being in Tampa. He's in a great offense. I mean, up until his injury, he was third in the league in receiving yards. He played 7 games and had over 500 yards, 50 catches, and 5 touchdowns. He knows that if he comes back, he's going to be in that juggernaut of an offense once again, which still did pretty good without him, but it'll only be that much better with him returning. I think he's got to get over 20 million, but the Bucs have more cap room than they did last season, so they can go and give him that extra money. And I think the Bucs are also going to be smart about it and say, all right, we know we have Mike Evans for 1 more year. We'll see what happens after that. But, Mike is getting a little bit older now. Who knows how much longer he's going to be? Chris isn't 30 yet. He's getting close. But if you sign Chris to his next long-term deal, you have him under contract for a couple of more seasons. Jalen McMillan becomes your wide receiver too whenever Mike decides to hang it up. And you put Chris Godwin in a good position where he doesn't have to move his family. He knows he's going to produce for this team, which you never know when you go to a new team. It's a different fit. It's a different system. So I can't say 100%, but, man, I'd be surprised if he goes anywhere else besides Tampa.
I'm with you, man. I think 3 years, like 22 million per, you know what I mean? It gets him slightly above Mike. He's in that honey spot for some guys. If you want to bump it up a little more, as long as the Bucs can afford it. I mean, they figured out a way to bring these guys back. So it's almost like, all right, Chris, if you want to come back, just like with Mike, right? If you want to come back, we'll find a way. And we know that it was Mike Evans' wife going, why are we leaving? Why don't we just stay here in Tampa? I think the same thing is going to be with Chris Godwin and his entire situation. Who's going to be calling the plays next year is obviously the biggest question mark right now. We just alluded to that he wrapped up his interview last night with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but what does your gut tell you on Liam Coen? Does he stay here? Does he leave? And are you one of the people that believe that if he does try to leave, that the Buccaneers should make the move and say, all right, Todd, thank you, but we're going to Liam? Like, what is your whole thought process on the Liam Coen and then a lesser extent Todd Bowles situation?
My gut feeling is that Coen is still going to be back with the Buccaneers. And I know people were freaking out last night based on the late night interview, but the Jaguars are still interviewing other people. They're going to talk to Brian Flores. Robert Saleh has been in the mix as well, the former Jets head coach. So it's not like it's just
Todd Monken. That was another one, yeah.
Todd Monken as well, which is big time, which Todd Monken, for me, also plays into this whole carousel with the Buccaneers. Because if Liam Coen is not back, let me put it this way. If Liam Coen says, hey, I'm going to take the head coaching job with the Jaguars, I think the Bucs got to stay strong, make a move, and then make Liam Coen the head coach. I understand the stability that Todd Bowles has brought. When we look at last season, wasn't like everyone's like, oh no, the defense, we need to keep that intact. No, everybody's like, we need a new edge rusher. They need a new inside linebacker. They need a corner. Get rid of Jamel Dean. I just think more than anything else with Todd Bowles, who's had an okay run. Yes, he's won a bunch of division titles, but I don't know. The 8-9, 9-8, and then 10-7 isn't necessarily fooling me. It hasn't been a stellar performance. There's still a lot of issues with Todd Bowles. I get that we don't know if Liam Coen is like a leader among men and how it's going to work. But what I do know is Liam Coen is 39 years old, and he could be the next Sean McVay. Sure, he could be the next blown up situation like Dirk Cutter and things like that, or Mike McDaniel. But are you willing to throw away somebody that has completely turned around the offense and is still going to be a juggernaut once again, a team that was averaging almost 30 points per game? Are you going to give that up with a guy that could be your head coach for the next decade, for a coach that has incrementally gotten better, and yet your side was the worst side of the team? Like, if you just put everything in a vacuum and you say, hey, we had 2 coordinators this year. We had a guy that was top 5 in offense and bottom 5 in defense. We're going to go, let's go with the guy that was bottom 5 in defense. Let's stick with that guy. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So as much as Todd Bowles has been important to this program, Liam Coen and the offense and the future of this team, I think, is where it should be. Now, the reason why it comes back to Todd Monken is if Coen does go, if you don't believe in Todd Bowles just then, Monken's not going to go from the Ravens to the Bucs to be an offensive coordinator. That makes no sense. But to become the head coach in Tampa, where he's worked with Baker Mayfield before, he's worked with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and he's lived in the Tampa area, that seems like not a bad idea to make him the head coach. So I'm not ready to move on from Todd Bowles just yet if Liam Coen decides to come back. But when there's a lot of pretty good options out there on the offensive side, it's tough to look at those and say, we don't want that because we believe that Todd's going to pick another great offensive coordinator and hit for the 3rd straight time in a row. I think that's really difficult to do.
Yeah, I guess my whole thing is like I want to believe that, and I understand what you and I had Scott on earlier this week. My whole thing is that when you just mentioned it too, and you're like, you need another edge rusher, you need to have talent on that side of the ball. And I think when you look at all 3 levels on defense, like they are missing talent. When you look at the Bucs offensive line, I mean, 4/5 of those guys were drafted by Jason Light. Ben Bredeson did a decent job. I think he ranked 95th out of 130. And you have Bucky Irving, and you have these guys on the outside. Even to start the year, you had Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. You drafted Jalen McMillan. You even had Rashad White backing up. Sean Tucker was NFC Offensive Player of the Week. So as much as we want to give credit to Liam Coen, like he had horses on that side and some depth. And that's what worries me is that I don't think Todd Bowles had the same horses on the defensive side that Liam Coen had on the offensive side. So while I do give Liam Coen credit, I also think he had a lot more to work with. And my issue is that everybody thinks that if there's a change, it automatically people think that change is going to be better. Well, we've also seen a team in the last 2 years where they've had long sustained losing streaks in the middle of the season, and not one person complained. Nobody bitched, nobody moaned. Even Levante David came out the other day in locker room saying nobody's talking crap about Todd Bowles. Like, Matt, you know as well as I do, we're not just football fans. We see this in other sports. When losing streaks happen, there's usually some murmurs. Yeah. There's some people bitching and complaining like, man, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Whether it's defensively, guys on defense looking at him going, man, Todd doesn't know what he's doing. Or guys on offense like, damn, we're carrying the water, right? And why we haven't heard that 2 years in a row. And people forget at the end of 2 years ago when they needed a win to make the playoffs, I mean, they shut out the Panthers 9-0. So people look at the 9 with Canales, but I look at the 0 with Todd Bowles. So, he has a track record of having some good defenses when he's able to have the players to complement his scheme. I'm worried, man. I'm worried that that we get so caught up with the shiny object going, he could be the next Sean McVay. I mean, they said that about Josh McDaniel. Wow, he worked with Brady. He could do that with anybody. They said that with Adam Gase. He worked with Peyton Manning. Adam Gase. You know what I mean? Like, think those things kind of worry me. And I have more faith in we would be asking Liam Coen to do something he's never done before. And that's be a head coach. And people are more concerned with Todd finding another offensive coordinator when there's a track record that he's been able to do it. There's no track record of Liam Coen being a head coach. There's a track record of him being a play caller. So can you kind of see that aspect of it too, where there's?
I understand.
I get it.
I completely understand, like, the grass isn't always greener, but, like, Todd Bowles' career head coaching record isn't that good. Like, we're not talking about a guy that's winning 13 games consistently. And I push back a little bit on, yeah, Coen had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but then also Mike and Chris got hurt, and the offense didn't really miss a beat with those two guys out. He still found ways to put points on the board with Cade Otton as your leading receiver. And then Cade Otton got hurt, and they were able to make Payne Durham and Devin Culp, the Culp of personality, something. Late into the season as well. And yes, injuries played a big factor with Todd Bowles in that side of the defense. If Bryce Hall didn't break his leg in the first week of the season, I think that makes a big difference. But you can also look at the Detroit Lions, who had even more injuries than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did. And Aaron Glenn put up a great performance against the Vikings in that last game of the season when they had to win the number one seed, or else they were playing against Los Angeles in Phoenix last week. So I understand injuries are a big part of it, but then you got to change your game plan a little bit. Like the middle of the field got attacked over and over and over again. We saw the Cowboys game, the Saints game, the Commanders with 4:41 left on the clock. You got to get a stop. And every single time these teams would run the same exact plays, like just 5 yards down the field, get an extra 2 yards on the catch and run, get out of bounds, and bam, set yourself up into field goal range. So it's the consistent ongoing problems with Bowles over and over and over again. I understand people were not in there. Like Antoine Winfield Jr. probably saved Todd Bowles a good amount last year with, you mentioned the 9-0 game. Well, that was going to be a touchdown until Antoine Winfield Jr. knocked the ball out. So injuries are a factor, and Todd does bring a lot of good things. You're absolutely right about the locker room sticking together. But I'd also argue that maybe, and sure, you don't know until you're actually in the situation, but what about just not getting into those 4 and 5 game losing streaks that Bowles has done over the last 2 years? Maybe part of the reason why guys weren't panicking is because you play in the NFC South, which objectively sucks. It's the worst division in football. They got in because the other teams are bad. You could argue the AFC South as well is pretty bad, but the Bucs have been very lucky to play in a really bad division over the past 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I see that, and the other thing is like they've won games outside of their division. It'd be one thing if they played in such a bad division where they're going 6-0 against everybody else. They lost both games against Atlanta, right? And they went into Detroit to win that game. They went cross country to LA and shut out the Chargers in the second half. It's a playoff team. So I mean, I think you look at it on both sides, and you and I both know, like, as much as people want to say, oh, look at Todd and this and that, like, this isn't Todd Bowles from the Jets. Like, we have to keep things, and this is part of the reason. And again, I go back to what I've been saying ever since they elevated him. If it falls apart like it did with the Jets, this is not a good idea. Matt, you and I both know he 5 games and 4 games the last 3 years with the Jets. You're talking about a guy not getting worse every 3 years, incrementally, even if it's a little bit, he's getting better. So I feel like we're in a position where I understand what everybody wants, and I understand that there's a trend in this league, but I also feel like there's parts of this that need to be accounted for, of the team staying together, the lack of talent on the defensive side of the ball, and then possibly they're 10-7 this year, right? We're talking about a team that was the worst team in all 4 major sports before Tom Brady was here. So I don't know, man. I think it's a good discussion back and forth, but I look at Liam Coen and I just hope he pulls the Ben Johnson. It'd be a lot easier if this team wasn't good. It'd be a lot easier if the team didn't make the playoffs. It was like, all right, Todd, thank you. But they still found a way, right? I want to ask you about Levante David, because I know there's been kind of differing opinions on whether they think he's going to be back next year. He looks super emotional in the locker room, and that to me was it was tough to see, because I know he's a guy that he's very stoic and very soft-spoken, that, but it was a little different. It seemed like it hit him harder. What is your gut telling you? You think Levante returns next season?
I do. I think if you ask Levante right now and you gave him truth serum, he would say, I'm done. It's been a good career. I'm hanging it up. But you got to remember, the season just ended. He's probably exhausted. His body's still probably beat up. But I have a feeling when March rolls around, then it's free agency, and you see some moving parts, and you see who the Bucs pick up in free agency and all the rumors and stuff like that. I think when he has a little more time to reflect, a little more time to ponder his future, he's going to remember what he loves about the game of football. And clearly he doesn't have a lot of time left. I still think he can play at a pretty good level. Pass coverage is a bit of an issue, but hey, he had 5.5 sacks this year. I think he's still really good at stopping the run. the biggest thing for me, and only Levante can answer this, is, and he's won a Super Bowl, so it's not like he has to ring chase or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you're leaving a team, regardless of who's the head coach and who's the offensive coordinator, you're leaving a team that, in my opinion, is still in a really good spot to contend for a Super Bowl.
Right.
It still feels like they're on the up and up. Do you want to leave that right now when you have another chance at getting a Super Bowl? I think, again, right now, he's probably thinking, I'm done. I've done everything that I possibly can. But give it another 2 months when you're a little more refreshed, when you can recharge the batteries a little bit. And that's where I think Levante may be more intrigued to come back to the Bucs.
Bigger disappointment, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka or Kyle Trask?
Joe Tryon-Shoyinka.
Yeah.
I just think, he was supposed to be the next guy to take over for JPP, and even Shaq to a degree. You're not really going to complain too much with Kyle Trask when he's backing up Tom Brady, and then Baker Mayfield has done what he's done over the last 2 seasons. You can argue all you want. It was a bad second-round pick, and that's probably true. But again, for a team that has made the postseason 5 years in a row, won a Super Bowl. I know Kyle Trask was still at Florida at that time, but won 4 straight divisions. It's tough to complain about a guy that's hasn't really factored into that success.
What do you see with Rachaad White? I mean, obviously lost his starting gig to Bucky Irving, and Bucky's going to be all the rage going into next year. People are going to be drafting him high in fantasy. He's already getting the chance there at Raymond James Stadium, Matt. What does that mean for a guy like Rachaad White? Because listen, he is a RB1. He was telling everybody that can hear, like he was making the rounds before the season. He was excited. He wanted to be a Pro Bowler, and unfortunately, by the end of the year, he was the backup to the rookie out of Oregon. So, what do you make of Rachaad White's future here in Tampa Bay?
Rashaad's still a very solid running back and probably would be a starter on a number of teams, but Bucky Irving is just on a different level. He's faster. I think he can read the blocking and the holes a little bit better, and he's always just going forward. He's always making somebody miss. With that said, Rachaad White is still the best pass blocking running back on this team, which is very important. I mean, we saw in that game against the Commanders when Bucky was in, he was getting pushed all the way back. I love the pony package. I love when Bucky and Rachaad are on the field together. But I said this before the season even started. I see Rachaad White in like an Alvin Kamara role where he can be as effective as Bucky Irving, but in the passing game, in throwing situations, in screens and all that stuff. And he has been. It was a little odd down the stretch, not necessarily seeing that. I don't think Rachaad should go into next season being a guy that only gets like 2 rushing attempts per game. Bucky should still get the bulk, but Rachaad should definitely be mixed in. He's a good player. I don't know what his future would be once his contract is done, because a lot of times you're not going to give a big contract to a running back, especially a third down guy. So I think he certainly has a future in the NFL, but once his initial contract is done with the Bucs, we'll kind of see where the chips fall, how the running back room looks then, what type of improvement Sean Tucker makes. And Rachaad White will be in this league for a while because third down running backs can always find a home somewhere. So I'm optimistic for his overall NFL career. But, as long as Bucky Irving's in Tampa, Rashaad's going to be RB2.
Yeah, that's true. And it's crazy because you think of a guy like Sean Tucker, right? Like, guys, there's probably other teams out there like, damn, we wish we had a third running back like that, right?
No doubt about it. A couple of miscues from Sean Tucker, though. Like, the game against the Saints, he gets in the game and you're trying to burn clock and he just runs out of bounds. I didn't totally get that. He fumbled it against the Giants and didn't really get many opportunities after that. He had that weird thing on the kickoff as well where he didn't know whether to play it or not, so he got tackled at the 5-yard line. So a couple mental errors have come from Sean Tucker, but he's got a ton of talent when he's running the football. He's another guy that needs to figure it out a little bit in the passing game. But, I mean, when you have the talent to be an NFC Offensive Player of the Week, when, like, you just got playing time out of nowhere based on other injuries, I'm excited for him, too. I love this running back room. I think it's one of the best running back rooms in all of football. They all do something a little bit different to help this team. And, injuries happen in the NFL. If one of those guys goes down, you still feel pretty good about the offense and what they can do with the other 2 guys.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? How things have changed in just a year or so when you're like, I don't know about this running back room. And now it's like, yeah, I kind of really like this running back
Yeah.
room. So are you AEW over WWE like 100% now? Like, is that you think?
No, I haven't really watched AEW in a while. Like when I reference AEW, I saw the clips on Twitter and stuff.
Okay.
It's like anything else. It comes and goes. It all depends on the storylines. Like I'm a big MJF guy, as you know. He's from the most magical place on planet Earth.
Yeah.
So when he's in the mix, I don't really care about Jeff Jarrett. So I don't really care about that storyline. But a lot of times MJF is doing something cool. I'll watch. But then, yeah, now WWE has been hot with the Netflix stuff. The Rock was back. Cody and Kevin Owens, I think, is going to be awesome with that ladder match. The Royal Rumble is always one of my favorite pay-per-views. The Bloodline stuff is great. Roman Reigns back in the mix. So I really just hop to wherever the best storyline is. I don't choose like one over the other because I think that's stupid. Like they're all here for entertainment and stuff like that. Why would you be so loyal to one company and then not another? Like the guys go back and forth between companies. They're friends with guys in other companies. Like just enjoy it all. That doesn't have to be necessarily a rivalry.
All right, 2 quick questions before I let you leave. Who wins the Royal Rumble and who does John Cena fight at WrestleMania?
Oh man, well, I kind of think John Cena is going to win the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
I guess Cody. John Cena versus Cody would be really cool.
I was thinking the same thing.
Because he could win Money in the Bank. He could win, right? Because he doesn't just have to win that.
No, and that's
I don't want to see CM Punk win. I don't know. I'll stick with John Cena just because I love him. Him and The Rock are like my 2 favorite wrestlers, so I'll go with John Cena. John Cena versus Cody. That's my official pick.
I think that's somehow they're going to get to that, but I just wonder too if, like, don't you want John Cena to be in Elimination Chamber too? So if that's the case, then I don't think he would win the Royal Rumble. I mean.
Now that I think of it, they'll probably be like, this is John Cena's last chance to contend for a championship. Exactly. So they don't want to do it too quickly with Indy in the Royal Rumble. So that makes a lot of sense.
I could see I know they're probably going to want to go one-on-one, but I would love to see a Roman Reigns, John Cena, Cody Rhodes triple threat match. I think that would be
cool.
Some point, some form or fashion. I think that'd be great. Matt Matera, Pewter Report, the one and only. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you so much. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks as always, Jay. Have a good one.
You too, buddy. All right. Good job there, Matt Matera, Pewter Report. We're going to bring her in a little bit early today because she is so important to us. The one and only Sonya Bryson-Kirksey pulled over to the side of the road just to join us on the program. Thank you so much. I know you're so busy. I know the schedule is crazy, but we are here for you, Bolts Nation. We love you. And just let us know what we can do to help Mama. I know she's dealing with some stuff right now.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
So back in November, she had a medical incident, and it caused her to have an accident. It was a 1-car accident. She totaled her car, and also ended up with some very grave injuries, some broken ribs on both sides. I think it was bilateral 8 ribs. So that's a lot of ribs to be broken for a 78 or 79-year-old. She broke a portion of her hip and also nicked part of her aorta, which she had to have emergency surgery for. So just that part was a lot for her to recover from. And I waited that week out because it happened on like a Tuesday, but I wanted to, finish my obligations there in Tampa. So I left that Sunday. My dad was with her, so she had someone there. And I came that Sunday to be with her at the hospital. And within the time of her having that surgery for her nicked aorta, she also had a stroke. They called it a TIA, which is called a mini stroke, but for all intents and purposes, it's a regular stroke. I don't even know why they call it a mini stroke because it's still a recovery thing. It's still something that she's going to have to work to get back to. And so if you can just think about it in that respect, just all of that on top of, her being 79, she's never had a broken bone or surgery in her whole entire life. So this was all new to her. The pain was very new to her. Now, myself, I've had 2 replaced knees, and some other things. So I'm kind of used to the pain thing. So it was really new to her. So it's just a lot for her to get over emotionally, mentally, and then physically. So she needed both my sister and I there with her in order to, you know, be able to help her get through all of this. Then after they released her from the hospital, they sent her to a rehab facility. So rehab is basically for therapy and all this therapeutic care. So it helps you to get better so that you can, you know, kind of get back to a state where you can kind of take care of yourself, you know, at least feeding yourself, using the restroom alone, all that kind of thing. However, while she was at that rehab facility, she got an infection in the area where they went in to do the surgery. So she had to go back to the hospital like during Christmas week. I was there at the time that it happened. My sister was here with her. So I came back to, you know, all of that, her being in the hospital and then trying to make heads of what happened and everything. So just, you know, long story short, there's a lot that has happened. She's now looking at another major surgery here in the next 2 weeks. So I'm a very proud person, and I'll try to do everything by myself as long as I can. My sister's the same way. We were kind of raised that way, I guess. But at this point, I need my village. You know, there's just financial issues and just the back and forth, the flying and all that stuff where I just feel like I need the help of my village to help out. And I know Tampa is always been in my corner, always had my back. I even have on my Tampa Strong shirt
There you
today. So that's one of those things that I know that Tampa's good for is, you know, being there when you need them. And I try to be there for Tampa as well. So as you see, I've been flying back and forth. I fly back and forth to sing, you know, and then come back. I don't do every game, but I try to do as many as I can when I'm back. So I'm not forgetting about the people that are there that love me. And I love you guys too. So that's just the short and dirty of it.
Well, I just reposted the GoFundMe on my Twitter/X. I will put that on all of my social media accounts. I know you're pulling over to the side of the road right now, and you got so many things going on. I know there's another visit today and another consultation. I will continue to push this out. I'm going to let everybody know at the Lightning game tonight when I go to Amalie Arena, and I will take this video and we'll clip it and we'll put it on social, and we'll do whatever we can to help you and help mom. And if you need anything else, Miss Sonya Bryson-Kirksey, one of the voices of our community, the salt of the earth, one of the best people I've ever met in my entire life, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll help in any way we can, okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jay. I appreciate you, man.
You got it. Be careful on the road. We'll talk to you. Yeah, keep me in touch. Give me a shout in the next couple of days. Let me know.
I will. Thank you so much.
You got it. Talk soon. All right, the one and only Miss Sonya Bryson-Kirksey. We are going to help her. We're going to do everything that we can to make sure that she and her mom gets the help that they need. It's tough. It is when you're dealing with a loved one that has gone through some of these medical issues. You guys know sometimes you feel helpless, but this is an opportunity for us as a community to rally behind her, because you know the events that she's gone to help, the way that she goes out there and spreads the word of anybody that needs help. I mean, this is an opportunity to really help Miss Sonya Bryson-Kirksey. So, man, I hope we're doing enough. I just want to help in any way, in any form or fashion. So again, I'll be at the Lightning game tonight. If you follow me on Twitter/X at @JRecher, you can go check it out right now. The GoFundMe page. Not only do you want to, contribute financially, there's also other things that you can send to help, but also sharing this. Just by sharing it, you never know who it's going to get. And when that happens, it can really change everything. So please, whatever you can, help out our good friends, and we will go from there. All right, let's bring in our good pal, Corey Long. He is dropping truth bombs on the program today. I like the glasses. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
No, I just didn't want you to see my red eyes, man. Just coming back off of a little time away, and happy to be back here in the area.
Where'd you go?
I went out to the Bahamas for a little bit.
Nice.
My mom's in town. She wanted to take a little short vacation, and I decided that was the time the Lightning were on the road, so I wasn't going to miss any games, and it was a nice trip. It's traveling is always fun. It's nice to get away, see new places, but at the same time, I'm really excited to get back to my bed and my normal routine, and no one listening knows this, but like I have like crazy sleep apnea, and it isn't necessarily. And I can take my machine with me, but those machines are so much based around, routine and comfort that
Mhm.
taking me outside of like my bed it was just a disaster in that sense. So that's probably why my eyes are red today. So I'm really excited, like when I get from the Lightning game tonight to get back to my, my sleep, I'm able to breathe and sleep at the same time, which I'm not able to do without this machine.
So do you have the whole thing that goes on, the whole thing?
Yeah, I look like Bane, man. That thing looks
Yeah.
crazy. It does. It looks pretty wild. So, but like I said, I'm thankful to have it. It's a lifesaver. It makes me a lot more.
Hold on, I think we lost you. Bring him back. It's so funny how Corey was just talking about it's a lifesaver, and then all of a sudden everything stops. Come back, Corey. Please, Corey, don't leave us. We'll get to Corey here in a second. We'll remove him and then bring him back when he's back and functioning once again. We'll be back in a second. But shout out to Bart Hill. Prayer for Sonya and her mom. Richie P just made his donation. Thank you so much, man. Please go help our good friend Sonya Bryson-Kirksey. Again, I just tweeted it out the GoFundMe to help her mom, who's dealing with some incredibly bad medical issues. Russell, our guy Hammer, we love you, Sonya. Prayers for you and your family. Thomas wants to know, do you think it is possible that we trade for the Minnesota Vikings head coach? No, I do not think that's possible. If you're the Vikings, there's no way in hell that I'm getting rid of or letting go Kevin O'Connell. He is an incredible coach, and look at what he's been able to do the last couple of years, whether it's Kirk Cousins or whether it is a guy like Sam Darnold this year. And if you're a Vikings fan, I know it didn't end the way you wanted it to, another first-round exit, but you got J.J. McCarthy, a rookie quarterback out of Michigan that didn't even play this year. And you have to think if he's just been sitting all year long and he can learn from a guy like Kevin O'Connell, sky's the limit, right? This is the guy that was able to lead Michigan to a national championship. He can move with his legs. He's a lot more accurate than some people are led on to believe. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how that whole thing goes. Hopefully we can get Corey back here in a second because I want to hear what he had to say as far as, let's see real quick, as far as the Buccaneers and the Lightning tonight. Some breaking news in the wrestling world. WWE and TNA Wrestling today announced a multi-year partnership aimed at creating unprecedented crossover opportunities within WWE and TNA programming for NXT superstars and TNA wrestling stars. I love this. This is such a great idea. We saw that a little bit already in the last couple of months where there was some crossover when TNA did a show at the fairgrounds. We saw some WWE or NXT stars there. So really, really smart there. Corey, we got you back. It was kind of ironic. You were talking about feeling good and being alive and all those things. And then
poof, my internet.
your connection died. I was like, this is not.
Telling you, Spectrum, get it right, man.
Get it right, Spectrum. All right,
right.
we're gonna talk some hockey, but I want to start with football.
Okay.
I want to hear what you have to say because I know you were pretty vocal on social media. You were feeling it, bro. You just kept commenting. So I'm like, oh, Corey's on a heater right now. What is your thoughts? And you're a guy that's been around football for a long time as well. What are your thoughts on everybody being so, oh my gosh, we have to promote Liam Coen and get rid of Todd Bowles if Liam threatens to leave? Because I understand what people are saying. I understand it's an offensive-minded game, and he could be the next iteration of a guy like Sean McVay. But I'm also looking at the leadership of a guy like Todd Bowles and looking at the lack of talent on that side of the ball. And I feel like it's not so cut and dry where people are making it out to seem like that.
I mean, I expect fans to, be short-sighted. I think where it surprises me is when so-called professionals are just as short-sighted. Now, don't get me wrong. You want to keep – I think Liam Coen is a perfectly functional offensive coordinator. I think he's good. I think obviously it's a system that Baker Mayfield's comfortable in. I think their numbers are good. Bucky Irving's had a great year. Baker had a solid year. Chris Godwin was having a tremendous year till he got hurt. Things they all do. There's pieces that do well, and like I said, these pieces did well under Canales. These pieces did well, when Bruce Arians is running the show. So maybe it's the players, maybe, I mean, it's not a like Liam Coen, God bless him. He isn't like a genie. Like he doesn't make it's not like, Mike Evans is going to be great Shazam, and all of a sudden he starts, whatever. Like he's a guy that's calling plays and doing a good job, but there's a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball, started with, and that's due to some very good drafting. I mean, you really should be far more concerned about keeping the synergy in the front office together because, that's where it all comes from. And, but I think my issue was very simply a game. It's like I don't really understand. I guess I don't really understand why this game was so why this particular game was the one that, like, this is not the one that if I'm trying to endorse Liam Coen, this past game against Washington isn't the one I'm hanging my hat on. I'll be honest with you. I mean, again, how many turnovers were there in that game, Jay?
Just one.
It
was the Bucks.
Would you tell me? Now, I was watching it on a cruise liner, so my eyesight might have been a little off. I got these glasses now. Would you say that turnover was forced by the defense, or was more of an unforced error?
Yeah, I'll take old Pete Sampras unforced error.
Yeah, it's an unforced error, and they had the ball, I believe, at their own 15-yard line. Am I correct? This is after a goal line stand, right?
Right.
All right, and they were calling some sort of what looked to be a gimmicky jet sweep. Maybe a fake was in there. Maybe there was some timing issues. Correct?
I'll give you that. Mm-hmm.
All right, and this is a couple plays after, Bucky got you. He got you. Bucky Irvin, got you first down by running the ball. Bucky got you. Got you out of the deep end with a little bit of a run. They get a play to Evans. You get a first down. So this was an opportunity in a 17-13 game. You get a first down. You get first and 10 on your own 15. They had some possession issues. This was an opportunity to really sustain a nice little drive, mix things in, some run pass. 17-13 game, you got a lead. I think if they get that lead up to double digits, I feel pretty confident that they can hold on at that point, up 24-13, and force the Commanders off script a little bit. Instead, now again, don't get me wrong. This doesn't make Liam Coen a dummy for making a mistake. My point is very simple. Mistakes like no one's talking about that. They're like, well, the defense. The defense had a goal line stand from the 1 yard line, and then had to walk back on the field after the offense turned the ball over at their own 15. And, and mind you, Washington took 8 minutes on that drive that they ended up getting to the one or what. Like, it's just, I just think there's a lot of, I'm looking at something like, is Liam Coen related to you? Like, are you a family or something? Like, there is just this amazing protection for a guy that I think has done certainly a decent job. But if you lose him, you lose him. You didn't want to lose Canales either, I don't think. But you did. And you know what? You got Liam Coen. If you lose Liam, who knows who you're going to get next? I mean, I get I get it. You can only have so many future Kyle Shanahans in the program, but I tend to have faith in what this front office does, that maybe they're good at hiring people. Maybe they're good at hiring coaches to
So you have faith that the Bucs could find another Liam Coen if he leaves?
I have a faith they can find another very good offensive coordinator.
Okay.
Like, again, someone tell me what when did Liam Coen become Bill Walsh? When did that happen?
I'm with you. It's kind of weird because I just had Matt Matera on from Pewter Report, and I was literally defending Todd Bowles, and now I have to. Now I'm on the other side. I gotta defend Liam Coen. Well, no, I'm with you, but
I think this idea that this organization is gonna fall into the abyss if he leaves is ridiculous.
I do think that there's got to be some credence to Corey. I don't think people were losing their mind when Dave Canales left. because they knew in week 18, this guy was like, we don't have an identity. They still couldn't run the football. They were 32nd in the league, and they didn't just make marginal improvements. They went from 32nd to 4th.
Yeah.
Right. You're talking about a guy in Bucky Irving who, if it wasn't for Jaden Daniels, would be offensive player of the year. I mean, he was a top 5 running back. I mean, if you're a fantasy football owner, people look at that and say, hey, this guy was able to do something that neither Byron Leftwich nor Dave Canales could do. Right. So that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
When you look at a guy like Chris Godwin, who did not have a great relationship with Dave Canales, people were wondering, is he ever going to get back to that? Before he got banged up, he had 50 catches over 500 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Right. You look at the offensive line, the way that there was pre-snap, and you know this, pre-snap motion and blocking schemes that we did not see from Dave Canales. I saw that in training camp, right? And I was just like, this just looks different. Even with T-shirts and shorts on with no defenders, I'm like, this just looks different than what we've seen from Byron Leftwich and Dave Canales. Didn't know if it was going to work, but it just looked different. So I think people look at the drastic difference in Dave Canales' offense and Liam Coen's offense, realizing that for the first time in his career, Baker had back-to-back good years and an even better year this year than last year outside of the turnovers. But I think that's where people look at it. I'm with you. I don't think they should I don't think they should get rid of Todd Bowles, but I also think Liam Coen, it's not just they're protecting him and they think he's the next Bill Walsh. I just think there's proof of concept that in 1 year, you can look at a lot of different areas and go, they improve there, they improve there, they improve there, they improve there, and people don't want to take a step back.
They gained 284 yards against Commanders. I keep wanting to call them the Redskins.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't get I mean, they had two fourth down stops. But other than that, they didn't get off the field. So I mean, you had 2 fourth down stops, right?
Again, but the offense had an opportunity to take control of the game and they turned the ball over.
I know, but you can't look at one side and not the other. You said 8-minute drive before.
Well, I certainly can.
The defense has to wear some of this too. Corey,
I'm not saying. But here's the thing: I'm not saying the Bucs defense played well. I'm not even saying they're good. They got to draft guys. They got to get better. They got to get better edge rushers.
Easily. I think that's the big thing that gets missed out of all this is that I don't think the majority of the blame on the defense goes to Todd Bowles. I think that you don't have dogs at all 3 levels. You have a great interior defensive line. Your pass rush, I don't think Yaya Diaby lived up to the expectations. No. We know JTS didn't. Chris Braswell didn't in year 1. You're banking on a 35-year-old Levante David to anchor your linebacking core. You have a bunch of other guys that are special teamers in that spot. And then everybody in your secondary is banged up. Yeah. Antoine Winfield Jr., who was an all-pro last year, even when he was healthy this year, didn't play all that well. So I'm with you. I think that goes into the argument of why I'd be apprehensive to get rid of Bowles and why I'm not laying a lot of blame on him.
Yeah,
because I don't think he has enough horses on the defensive side like we saw with Liam on the offensive side.
Yeah, I'm not pointing at you. I'm just saying, this is the thing. Personnel makes a difference. I mean,
right.
Having, I don't know what Dave Canales' offense would have looked, rush offense would look like with Bucky Irving in there. He wasn't on the team last year. He's on the team this year and he's a very good player. Again, someone had to draft him. And somebody did a very good, and some of that front office, those scouts did a wonderful job of drafting him. And I expect they'll do a good job at trying to get some defensive reinforcements. Definitely a player on the edge, someone that can really, complement what they do so well in the interior, some more youth at linebacker. The secondary had been piecemeal together as guys were getting banged up. Still, the second half of the season, I mean, the defense was pretty doggone good most weeks. They did a pretty solid job, I thought, for the most part, keeping teams off the scoreboard. I thought they were fine, but this particular game, and this is the NFL. And first of all, the other team is generally decent enough. They've really got some players. Everybody in the NFL is going to be pretty good to a certain extent. And I think when I looked at this game, and I think we talked about this, I thought the Bucs' best matchup was going to be against the Vikings. I really did. The Vikings won 14 games. Yeah, it was a really soft schedule, as you see now. Also, I knew taking them outdoors and putting Sam Darnold behind center in his first ever playoff start was probably not going to be I wasn't surprised at what happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'll say. As a longtime Jets fan, I've seen that Sam Darnold many times in my life. That one that can't throw the ball, that sees a pass rush coming and panics. So I saw, man, I think the Bucs probably better, match up. They do matching up against this young quarterback, which, as I pointed out, is only a rookie in a sense. He's been in the NFL for a year. I mean, he's an older guy.
Hey,
what are you looking at?
Danielle Collins.
Oh, hi, Daniel. An older,
super random. Sorry.
That's fine. No, I don't. It's your show, man. An older, an older guy. He had, over 50 starts in college, and he faced the team once. He faced them in week 1, and I do think as a young player that is committed to learning, which he obviously is, he learned a lot over the course of a year, and I think some of the same tricks didn't phase him as much the next time. The personnel obviously looked a little different. He is much, Jay Nielsen much more confident. It just wasn't the best of matchups for them, in my opinion, just because I thought the Commanders were just a much more different team than they were in week 1. So I couldn't even really look at that week 1 game and say there was anything comparable because, that team had grown so much over the course of a year. That being said, should the Bucs have won? Yeah, they probably should have. They're still a better team, but again, teams lose in the playoffs. Like only one team ends the playoffs happy.
Right. Yeah.
So you're when you're in the playoffs, you're gonna have it. And it was a tight game. It could have went either way. I believe the difference in the game was the turnover, and I hate that. And I'm bringing it up because nobody else is talking about it. No one's talking about it. That was a really not a good sequence there, deep in your own end when there was an opportunity to really put that game out of reach. Like there was only one opportunity in that game for a team to put the game, I don't say out of reach, but put, get arm's length. And that was it. Yeah. That was it. That was.
I think also too, Corey, is like I think people have mentioned it. I mean, I also think that the rush snap by Graham Barton right before the last field goal for the Buccaneers was a killer too, because you had 3rd and inches, and you're not in a good position there. You got to score 7 there, and that's what killed the Buccaneers. Is that in a game like that, you need to score touchdowns rather than field goals. But I think people are looking past just that game. I kind of get what you're saying, where people want to judge the last game on Todd Bowles, but not Liam Coen. Yeah. If you're gonna use that as your argument, you got to look at both sides, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I'm looking at the whole season as a whole, and thing that pissed me off about this defense is that you got guys running wide open, whether it was earlier in the year against Atlanta, whether it's the game against Washington, and whether you want to blame personnel or Todd. I don't care who's to blame, but it's got to get better, right? And if you're the defensive play caller and you're the head coach, like that falls on you. Whether the percentage of blame goes more to the personnel or him, it's got to go there. And I think that he should get another chance because they've incrementally got better in the regular season. I don't think there's enough horses on the defensive side. But if Todd does get another opportunity and they do give him some reinforcements at the pass rushing spot, outside linebacker, middle linebacker, another corner, another safety, and then they still have a similar performance, then I think the excuses or the reasons.
The success behind the Bulls defense, and really all the defense is cut from that cloth. He's cut from a pretty similar cloth to, the whole group of guys that out of the Tampa 2 group. They're all pretty similar. It's the 4-man rush. Mm-hmm. You have to have it. You have to have somebody that can get to the quarterback off the edge. That's what makes the blitzes work. That's what, and he's very creative with how he can send guys and send pressure different ways. But if you're not concerned about, if your tackles aren't really being put under, if your offensive tackles aren't being put under major trauma and major pressure to protect the quarterback, the blitzes just don't hit the same way. And if you're not rushing the pass, you're giving them time in the pocket for someone to eventually get open. Now, you could have good coverage on a play, but if a quarterback's got 5.5, 6 seconds to get open, an NFL wide receiver is going to find a place to get open eventually. So, it was unfortunately due to just not having edge rusher, due to some injuries in the secondary, although I think it's still more about the pass rush. I just think they were damned if they do, damned if they don't in situations. You had to you had to live or die on something. And what I found out early in the game is that, okay, sending all these intricate blitzes, they just aren't fading Jaden Daniels like they did in week one, because he's older. He clearly is a student of film. He's a he's a natural playmaker. And Cliff Kingsbury is a very good offensive coordinator, as he's been, as he's shown over his career. Not a good head coach, but a very good offensive coordinator as he's shown over his career. And they were able to figure, they had answers. And that's a game of chess that is football. That's the mental game, is that they this time had the answers for the things Bowles were doing, which forced him to back off. He realized, I can't leave my guys out there with these receivers because the blitzes aren't getting there, or he's figuring out a way. They're moving the pocket. They're extending plays. So we've got to figure out another way. And that was to kind of see if they could burrow him in, force him to make some mistakes. And they almost did. If you look at, situation at the goal line, Jamel almost has a 100-yard pick six if he is kind of can jump on the ball earlier. Like, some of the things were they were almost there. They weren't quite there. If you look at late in that, look on the field goal drive. I mean, Cansey's got the quarterback for what, a 7-yard loss on a play, doesn't wrap up. Things happen during the course of a game. I don't think Jamel Dean is not a goat for making that mistake. Cansey's not 94 is not a goat for making that for missing a tackle. These things just happen. I mean, the plays were there in those cases. The guys were there to make the plays, and it just didn't happen. So it's a lot of things. But I mean, my question is, if they lose Coen, and I don't think they will, if they lose Lee, are they going to then fire Todd Bowles? Like, then what? Now what are we doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they'll try to go get another offensive coordinator, and I'm with you. I'm not freaking out if he leaves. Like, I think that they'll be able to find somebody else out, and it's a lot more appealing of a job than it was the last couple of years, because you have the 4th-ranked rushing attack, you have stability at the quarterback position, a bunch of wideouts, 3 good running backs. Like, I think they could do a lot worse. 4/5-year offensive line is coming back. I want to talk some Lightning hockey too. Braden Point scratched the other night for missing a team meeting. Concerned about that at all?
No, it's his second missed team meeting. I think he missed one in 2019. My only concern is that, listen, man, you're the primary goal scorer on this team. I don't know, alarm clock issues. I don't know, I don't know what happened, why he missed it, but on the road against Boston in a winnable game that can really put you in a great position within the division. Can't afford to miss those games. You can't afford to do that. I applaud the Lightning staff, the coaching staff for having that level of accountability, because Braden Point is a superstar. He's carving out quite a career, most likely a Hall of Fame career, and he's part of this leadership team. And I'm sure he'll tell you himself he made a mistake. It's unfortunate. I'm sure he feels horrible about it, but. That's what keeps the Lightning. That's what's kept them, as one of the top teams in the league for, well over a decade now, is because they preach accountability, and that goes from the top to the bottom. So I'm not concerned. I don't think, like I said, he's missed 2 that I know of in his whole career. So, and he got benched both times. He didn't play, and so if it happens once every 5 years, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I am with you. What do you make of the team's play as a whole, and what kind of moves do they possibly need to make at the deadline to shore this team up?
I see that. I think they've played. As we were at the post game press with Cooper the other day, and I asked him kind of about, is this team kind of what you envision? And I think they're pretty close to that. They don't give up a ton of goals. They probably were scoring more than he expected, but scoring has started to come down a little bit, and they're still in positions where they can win the games. They had that bad West Coast trip, but frankly, all those games were winnable. They lost 2-1, and give them some empty netters from a 4-1 game, but they had opportunities. They just couldn't cash in on them. they've talked about in the locker room as being a team that they want to win 3-1 games and 3-2. That's what they're built for, that sort of a grind. So they're playing the way, for the most part, they're playing the way that they are built to play. I would love to see some more middle six, another scoring presence on the middle six. The top line is great. Hagel is having another very good year. Sorelli's having his best goal scoring year of his career. Nick Paul at times has been very good. I love if you can just get one more person there that can give you some sort of a threat at scoring. I think it would make a huge difference. Over time, that's going to be somebody like Connor Geekie, but he's a rookie, so I don't expect him to have 25 goals this year. So that's what I think that they'll be looking for is just someone they can put on that forward line that can maybe give them a little bit more secondary scoring.
Just got the word that Jesse Winker returning to the Mets. What do you think about that one, buddy?
I love Jesse Winker. I feel like every good team needs someone that the other team hates with a passion.
Right.
And Jesse Winker's that guy. And as they were going through this Mets run this past year, the thing that got me the most hyped up was the second when they scored the bonus run in Milwaukee, and he slams his helmet down and breaks it. I'm like, yes, you know what? Because this is a really good clubhouse. These guys seem to love each other, but they also need somebody that's just going to ramp up that intensity. And I think they went into that series against the Brewers having gotten smoked by that team. I think they lost 5 of 6, and the 5 weren't really close. And they early in the year, they got basically punked out on their own field in that first weekend. McNeil got punked out by, I think, Rhys Hoskins. And you needed somebody to come in and say, you know what, F these guys. And so I don't think Jesse Winker is, his value is going to come at different points in this season because over 162 games, you're going to have some peaks and some valleys. But you need that guy to come in there and, you know what, F this. We're winning today. We are winning today. Come, hell or high water. That's what we're doing. These guys suck. We're better than them. And that just gets your whole team calmed down again. So I love him. I just love his attitude. I love the way he seemed to really embrace being in the playoffs, being in New York. You're an Island guy. I'm a Queens guy. Not everybody can really embrace that New York playoff stuff. Not everybody really can deal. It's especially in baseball. It's an intense world. And you're a Yankees fan. I'm a Mets fan. These are scary, intense fan bases that demand a lot of you. And to have a guy that came in as a late deadline deal that could really embrace the intensity of that moment, understand it, and really like it, really want to suck it in. Like, yes, I want all that energy. I want all that angst. I want all that, I'm like, yeah, that's my guy. Do
the Lightning need a guy like that? What about Brad Marchand to the Lightning? What do you think about that?
Come on, really?
Bring him over.
You talking about this? No.
Come on, no.
And it's not that I like Marchand, but we've watched enough playoff series against the Lightning, no less, where I think the things that make him great were the things that also totally got his team unraveled. That face-licking incident, that totally got his team unraveled. Like, they totally lost focus in that series. And I remember, if you remember, I think that was 18, 19. If you remember, like, there was talk of like him getting they were done with him. They were done with Brad Marchand after that series. I think he licked Ryan Callahan in the face, and then they ended up getting just disposed in 5. And for all accounts, and I got my people, that locker room was done with him. They were done with the silliness. They're like, because it's not working for us. We're not winning anything from this. You're just annoying people, and we got to answer for it. They were losing out on the ice. So, I don't know.
Come on, Corey. They need somebody like that.
Can they get Yanni Gourde back? Maybe that's your guy.
He doesn't score enough. They need guys that
can
put the
he's
puck
not
in
a
the back of the
scorer. Although he did get some, the goals that Yanni did get, they've made a difference.
Yeah, that's true. But he also, I think he went that one year. He went like 52 games without a goal. They don't need that. They don't need that.
Yeah, I don't know if he's got enough guys to kind of set him up there, but they do need somebody. They do need somebody. I think another guy that's got a shot, but that also understands what they're trying to do, which is get in front of the net, draw a lot of havoc. Yeah, right now I'm a little worried about their scoring. The plays on that top line, they're not coming as easy. But the thing is, they like they said, they're built for this. They want to be built. They seem to understand that when they're slacking a little bit, they can just kind of get in front of the net. Let's get some greasy goals, get things back on track. So I think mentality, they're right. But yeah, you can always use more scoring, especially at the deadline. I think having another forward that they can rely on there would be important. My question is, can they pull another Hagel type of trade? Oh my God, they gave up so much for Brandon Hagel. How could they give up all of these picks? Nobody knows who these guys are. The only guy I think that's still hanging around the league is Taylor Radish, and he's with the Capitals now, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know what? Every time I see Brandon Hagel make a big play, no one's talking about how much it costs for the Lightning to get Brandon Hagel. They're talking about how big a stud Brandon Hagel has become in this league.
Yeah, I saw something the other day where he's like top 5 in even strength points, and he's going to be on Team Canada for the upcoming Four Nations face-off. So yeah, you're going to see Nathan McKinnon, you're going to see Connor McDavid, and on that same team, you're going to see Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel. Oh yeah, Braden Point's on that team.
Brandon Point's on that team as well with his 50 goal scoring self.
Gonna be fun. The one and only Corey Long joining us here on the program, NHL.com. You can find him everywhere, giving his opinions on everything sports and entertainment. I appreciate you, brother. Go get some rest.
I appreciate you too. I'll see you tonight.
You got it, pal. Thanks, Corey.
Take care.
All right, buddy. Corey Long, man. Love chatting with him. All right. Before we wrap things up, I want to finish the program today talking about St. Pete's own Danielle Collins. And I can't tell you how much I love the Australian Open. It's the perfect way to start the year. It's on TV when everybody's going to sleep. I love it. And I love it even more because of what St. Pete's own Danielle Collins did after her win earlier this morning. Have you seen this? It is insane. She was going back and forth with the crowd there down under as she played a local. And just check out this picture right here. Boom. She don't care. Kiss it. Smacked her own butt. She went full heel. Danielle Collins went full heel. She's yelling back and forth with the crowd. And then in her post-match interview, she's saying every person that bought a ticket to come out here and heckle me, it's all going towards the Danielle Collins Fund. Bring it on. I love it. She also said, one of the greatest things about being a professional athlete is the people that don't like you and the people that hate you, they actually pay your bills. It's kind of a cool concept. I love this. I don't only love it because she's from St. Pete. I love it because I am a huge fan when professional athletes go full WWE, full heel. We're talking about Hollywood Hulk Hogan turning on the baby faces at Bash at the Beach and forming the New World Order. I love this kind of stuff. I hate when professional athletes, they kind of dip their toe in it and then they act like, oh, everything's okay. And no, yeah, I don't, everything's all good. No, I love this kind of stuff. She knows that she's in enemy territory. She's a kid from the state of Florida. She's in Australia facing an Australian. Yeah, I'm all about it. And it's entertaining. That's what it's about. It's about entertainment. Sports is about entertainment. I love it. I think there needs to be more things like this where, listen, she's not hurting anybody. She, after the match, shook hands and was, sportsmanship was good with her competitor. That's fine. But if you're going back and forth with the crowd, we saw Novak Djokovic do something similar years ago with the U.S. Open there in New York City. I'm all for it. Who's it hurting? It's bringing more attention to the sport. I love it. I thought it was fun as hell, and I'm just so glad that it was Danielle Collins, St. Pete's own, giving it to the fans there in Australia after coming away with the victory. I hope she makes a deep run there in Australia, and how great would that be if she won the Australian Open title and she had to stand there with the trophy in front of the fans down there, down under. I can't wait. I can't wait to see her back on the court. Good for you. We're behind you all the way. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me today on the program. I'm going to take a little bit of a break and rest before I head over to Amalie Arena for the game tonight. A big thank you to everybody that joined us on the program today. Andy Freed talking about the late great Bob Bucher and all things race. Matt Matera from Pewter Report. Sonya Bryson-Kirksey, the voice of our Tampa Bay Lightning. Her mom is dealing with some incredibly difficult times medically. There's a GoFundMe out. I'm going to continue to put the word out and spread that information. You should too. And of course, Corey Long talking all things Lightning and football. Back in action tomorrow on the program. Zach Blobner, my good buddy, is going to join us. Bob Herrig, SI Golf, he's going to join us as well, and got some other irons in the fire. So hopefully we'll have even more guests to add to the program. Follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Please like and subscribe. Every single follow, every single share, every single subscription really does help. The growth has been extremely humbling. Let's keep this baby going. All right, that's going to do it for me. I'll see you tomorrow right here at noon on the Jay Recher podcast. I am gone.